Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation and Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home.
Good evening, New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll do it like we always do it. We'll talk about the local teams, the New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans. We'll touch on some college hoops as well. And we've got a great panel for you. Actually, my cohorts over at 990 AM WGSO. Love having these guys on the panel. Corey Johnson and, of course, Scott Alexander. Guys, welcome back. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for showing up tonight, and looking forward to a great hour.
Always good to be here.
Did he say great or grading panel? What did he say,
I heard
Scott?
grading.
All right, I thought grading too.
Everybody just went click. So they've moved on. They've moved on. Before we always get started, we always like to let the audience know what's going on. And Corey, man, you got some great news. First of all, tell everybody about your radio show and the great news about your radio show now on television.
Yep, yeah, Eric's pretty good stuff. You know, on 990 AM, right after Scott, who's right after you. I'm on 3 to 5 every afternoon, Monday through Friday on 990 AM. And that radio show is now being simulcast on Cox Channel 4, and I think it's Charter 325 on the North Shore. So, yeah, pretty cool stuff.
It is very, very cool. And congratulations on that as well.
Eric.
Scotty, you've been doing a great job talking sports here in this town now. You do it every day from 1 to 3. Tell the folks a little bit about your show.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to get to work every day. I've had some fun jobs in my life, being an agent, being in television. But seriously, I have more fun doing this than anything, especially it's in my hometown. I get to follow you right before you. And I actually cut my teeth in radio with both you guys, literally, especially you, starting back from the 90s and then in the last 5-10 years with you. It's just a pleasure, and it's a great honor to be a part of this team. I truly mean that.
Yeah, same here, guys. We'll start off with the Saints, and of course we'll get to the Pelicans. We'll talk a little college hoops. The cap has now been raised from $123 million to $133 million. There were some whispers out there that it was going to be about $135 million. Obviously, that helps the Saints now. Saints were $14 million over the cap. Now they're $8 million under the cap. That kind of evaporated a little bit today. Of course, they're going to have to tag Jimmy Graham. That's about $7 million. Today, they tendered Raphael Bush, probably the only restricted free agent they're going to tender, about $1.3 million. So they're kind of right up against the cap. Before we talk a little bit about some of the breaking news today, let's talk a little bit about Jimmy Graham. And Saints have given him the non-exclusive rights franchise tag, which means that any team in the NFL now has a chance to be able to negotiate with Jimmy Graham, his agent, for a contract. The Saints have the opportunity to have right of first refusal. If they do the right, if they decide they don't want to re-sign him at the market value which was set by another team, then that team has to give up 2 first-round picks. Corey, we'll start with you. First of all, you think Jimmy Graham's going anywhere?
I doubt Jimmy Graham's going anywhere, and if he does, c'est la vie. You get 2 first-round draft picks. I mean, I thought it was brilliant. Everybody knew the franchise tag was inevitable, but I don't think anyone was talking about would it be exclusive rights or non-exclusive rights. You talked about Loomis already working the cap magic. They're under it, so they're ready to be aggressive when they have to. He'll make a few more moves. You know, he's got scenarios set up to free up money in case someone pops up that they can go land. And instead of making it an exclusive right, they make it non-exclusive. So another team's interested. You guys negotiate the contract. Now, I guess you don't want to get into an Eric Gordon. Y'all probably talk about that later in the show. But it puts... You know, Jimmy Graham and his agent have to agree to that other team's contract, and then the Saints get X amount of time to match it, and if they don't, they get 2 first-round draft picks. So I think it is a great situation for the Saints. Even the $7 million hit on the cap isn't that bad considering what he really should be earning, 10 or 11 a year. So I don't know how they lose on this, guys.
No, I don't either. It's funny you mentioned Eric Gordon because Eric Gordon only played 9 games the year before, and he still gets $15 million a year, where Jimmy Graham is certainly going to be worth every penny he gets.
And you probably had to match that deal if you were the Hornets back then.
You had to, and they did it, and it was a big, it blew up in their face, as everybody knows. But here's the thing. Jimmy Graham, from what I understand, is not going to count against the cap until he signs that tender. So that could go all the way to July 15th, which does, because after March 11th, you have to stay under the cap. I mean, that's when free agency starts. So I think this gives him a little more leeway, and he's not going to sign the tender until July 15th anyway.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
The one thing you do is you allow him to set the market, which is what they're going to do with Zach Strief, which is what they're going to probably do with Brian De La Puente. He'll set the market. And then at that point, I mean, you just got to have to really look at ultimately who signs him or would like to sign him to that offer sheet. You know, on the back end of the first round is probably where you don't want to be. You don't want a Seattle Seahawk team to sign him because you know it's going to be, you know, probably 30, 31, 32, and that's nothing more than a glorified second-round pick. But if you get a team that, again, like a Cleveland or a team like that, where you know you're going to be in the top 10 for the next couple of years, it's probably not a bad deal for the Saints, even though I think all of us agree Jimmy Graham's not going anywhere.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of it, too. The percentage is it won't be one of these Seattle teams. I mean, it could be. They could just say, we'll bust the bank and get this one guy we feel puts us over the top. I mean, I don't know what great team has Jimmy Graham and that puts him over the top, a tight end. I mean, I might be wrong. He's a dynamic receiver. But I think a team that isn't so good, that's in a big market, that has a lot of cap room and can take a big hit and take that big contract on, I see some 4-12 team, you know, 6 and 10 type team signing him. And then it makes it interesting because you're like, boy, it's the 8th pick in the draft or something like that.
Well, you asked the question, do you think Jimmy Graham, is he going to be here or not? I would say he's definitely going to be here. However, the last week has given me pause of thought. Instead of 99.99, I'm like, okay, 99.5, because out there is something, 1 out of 200, that could possibly happen. That way, maybe there is a scenario that Jimmy Graham goes elsewhere, but
and then it doesn't matter because you get 2 first-round picks essentially, unless it's your worst-case scenario, Eric, where you're getting the 29th selection, because it's some great team that signs.
Exactly.
I would agree. Guys, what about contracts? What about guaranteed money? I'll throw the numbers out to you right now. Gronk is making $9 million a year. 13.1 million of that is guaranteed on his contract when he signed that deal. Dwayne Bowe is the 5th highest paid receiver. He makes $11.2 million a year, 20 million of that guaranteed. And Brandon Marshall's $11.2 million a year, but he's only got $12 million guaranteed. And those are the 5th and 6th receivers out there. What do you think where Graham will be? A 5-6 year deal? What do you think he'll get paid per year? What do you think his guaranteed money is going to be? And I think that's where everybody's kind of all over the place with it.
Guaranteed $15 million to $20 million, guaranteed, and $10 million a year, basically.
I was thinking $11 million's been in my head for a long time, and I was thinking
maybe
20 to $25 million guaranteed. There might be a little more to guarantee.
You might be right. You might be right.
He is an elite player.
He did this agent thing once upon a time.
I mean, I was around guys that really know how to do it well, like Pat Dye Jr. I kind of was just sitting there as a fly on the wall, listening to negotiations with him and Scott Pioli and Bill Belichick. So I kind of know how they do these deals and how they work them out, and it's always a give or take. But point being is you mentioned Dwayne Bowe. You mentioned Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall more so than Dwayne Bowe, but he's definitely better than Dwayne Bowe. He's better than Brandon Marshall in my opinion. Certainly at his position, but when you talk about effectiveness, I'd put him up there with Gronkowski. When he's healthy, those two are by far the best. This is a guy that the Saints need to have, though. When you look, I'm sure we're going to talk about these other contracts that just came up for discussion. And when you talk about across the board, the Saints have pieces that you can fit other people in, and that's what they've been known for. Well, you can't fit anybody and just say, hey, go take Jimmy Graham's place, because it's not going to happen. Jimmy Graham is that valuable to the New Orleans Saints.
Can I throw a curveball into this, Eric?
Absolutely.
Loomis is damn good at what he does, the contract part and all that stuff. Is he throwing in this sort of new wrinkle that, I don't know, the last month of the season-ish? Graham, your client's soft. He's not, you know what I mean? Is Loomis throwing that stuff out where, you know what I mean? I think you go back 3 months ago, Graham was perfect to most people.
It's part of the business, though.
And now it's like, I'm not saying he's tarnished.
He's got some flaws.
He's got a flaw or two out of 100.
Right.
So I mean, is he soft? Is he?
He can't block, or he can't catch the ball against the Seahawks or the Patriots.
They against him this way, and he's not effective. I mean, is Loomis using that when it's these one-on-one hardcore negotiations?
That's exactly what's going
Scotty,
on.
I gotta believe
That's exactly what's going on.
That's funny.
And then the day after they sign, he's going, I've always loved you, Jimmy. It's
of course.
No hard feelings.
Exactly.
No hard feelings. It's all part of the business.
Yeah.
That's right. 27 years old, though, for Jimmy Graham. I mean, you look at Jimmy Graham, this is probably the contract. You figure 5-6 years, he's going to be 32, 33 years old when the next contract comes up. This is where he's got to make his money.
This is the contract. Come on. When we're talking 33, we're going to be like, you might be able to get veteran minimum. I mean, seriously, to hang on in the league. That's why we're talking about guys like Sproles and Pierre Thomas and obviously Lance Moore, because these guys are 30, 31 next season. And also, but they can still perform. They're probably as good as anybody else on the field, but they make more money because they're older yet more expendable. So that's the nature of the business. But Jimmy Graham has been playing for pittance.
Yes.
I mean, literally pittance.
Now, that's true. And also, I'm going to leave it up to the agent that you guys think it's the one contract. But, I mean, I think the agent's going, yeah, it's the one contract to have that emphasis with his player, I care, and, emphasis with the team to jack up the rate. But I disagree. I mean, if it's some 5-year, $50 million deal with $22 million guaranteed or something, averaging 10 a year, I think by like year 3 or 4, he puts up the same numbers he's put up. It'll be a renegotiation, and that'll be the big deal where he gets some, $30 million guaranteed, and then we lower the cap number or something like that. But he's 27, and he has no tread burned on the college tire. The guy played 4 years of hoops at Miami, and then just basically walked on with that 5th year of eligibility to play football. And I think he caught 18 balls his senior year and was a backup tight end. So
you got a superstar.
He's like a 22-year-old.
You got a superstar on the verge of being a superstar, which is rare. When usually you're getting a guy that's going to start declining soon. He's still going up for 3-4 years.
Do you see them going to arbitration? Do you see a grievance happening out of the Graham camp? I'll just say going into this, I do. I think eventually that, again, he's been tagged as a tight end. I think ultimately that's going to be the next play that's going to happen out of the Graham camp. They will take the Saints to arbitration and a grievance to try to get him tendered as a wide receiver. What do you guys think?
I mean, the NFLPA, there's some interesting verbiage in that about, it's about, what position you played the most snaps at. But I think that's for more like safety, cornerback, punt returner, or DB.
D-end linebacker.
Yeah. Well, that's where they've only really had this feud in the NFL so far.
Suggs,
Suggs. Was he a D-end or was he a linebacker? D-end's like, fantastic money, and the linebacker's just average money.
But the team wanted to put him at linebacker when no one would say, I mean, maybe if you know football and you watch it, you'd say, oh, yeah, he plays a lot of linebacker, but everybody that knows anything a little about football knows he's a defensive end.
No, and
same here with Graham, and that's the Saints side.
Lucky Will Smith's long in the tooth because he's like, I'm a linebacker? I mean, I never even said linebacker. I said he's a D-end all season long, and he's a linebacker, whatever. But, that verbiage is going to be interesting, how that's broken down legally. I mean, I think it was meant for what I'm saying, but they'll use it as he lined up 61% of the time as a wide receiver. But Jimmy Graham is a tight end. I don't care where you line him up. I mean, you could say he's an H-back. I mean,
he's a tight end, but he happens to be the best receiving tight end possibly of all time when it's all said and done.
And kind of the position is changing. It's changing to more of a hybrid position now. And I think that a lot of teams, you're not going to see the team that's going to have that bona fide blocking Mike Ditka type tight end anymore who can catch the football.
No, it's a loose end. It's a split end.
It is.
It's a flanker.
And it's changing, and that's just the way the NFL is going. But they're still going to designate a player in that position as a tight end. And Jimmy Graham is a tight end.
They got to take it case by case, though, because every player is different.
Yeah, but I mean, Jimmy Graham's not a wide receiver. I mean, I just don't see that, I don't know.
I agree with Corey. He's not a wide receiver. He's a tight end.
And it's funny. Roman Harper's more of a kind of too small to play linebacker, too slow to play safety.
Almost a rover back.
And Malcolm Jenkins, too slow to play corner, too small to play safety. They're hybrid guys, like in the middle. I don't even think he's in the middle between tight end and wide receiver. He's a tight end that plays a lot of...
Catches a number of balls like a wide receiver.
Yeah, but he's a big lumbering guy, He's not like a fast, quick wideout guy.
And that's how he's utilized in the offense, though.
This is Loomis and I'm Sexton.
Yeah, exactly.
We're having the negotiation right now.
You can only get this right here on Inside the Wall in Sports. I guarantee that. 504-866-3200 is the phone number if you'd like to join the conversation. Corey Johnson, Scott Alexander of 990 AM WGSO, part of our panel tonight. March 11th, 3 o'clock New Orleans time. Saints have to be under the cap. We've mentioned right now Jimmy Graham tendered at $7 million. Today they tendered Raphael Bush, the only restricted free agent they'll tender, at $1.3 million. But we've seen a change in the guard. Vilma, Smith, Greer, Harper cut. There's been some talk that maybe if Greer is able to rehab himself, that he may get a look-see from the team. But that's probably not going to be until in the season. So they've got some holes to fill. Today, we found out Adam Schefter is reporting that Lance Moore and Pierre Thomas have been shopped around. The Saints are looking to try to move them. We had heard last week both guys were approached and at least asked to be able to renegotiate their deals, maybe adding a year onto the deal to make it more palatable against the cap. Right now, Lance Moore, $5.1 million is his salary. If the Saints were to cut him tomorrow, they would save $3.8 million against the cap. Pierre Thomas, $2.9 million. Again, that's against the cap with really no dead money. They cut him tomorrow. The Saints saved $2.9 million. And then the interesting one that was also announced today is Darren Sproles.
Which, by the way, I brought up when we had Larry Holder here.
Yes,
Larry
you did.
poo-pooed it away.
Right,
I just said, hey, it's a lot of money.
$4.25 million next year, $3.5 million cap savings if they were to cut him. Both Moore, Thomas and Sproles in the last year of their deals. That courtesy of our good friend Larry Holder, by the way.
Who
guys,
is the best?
What do you think is going to happen with these three mainstays who have brought so much to this organization?
What is it, see if we can get something for them now before they're released?
Right. I mean, Lance Moore's not going to be here at $5.1 million. Everybody knows that. Lance has been great he's the longest tenured Saint, I believe, at this point. 2005, he was a practice squad with Jim Haslett. He's not going to be here at 5.1.
The Toronto Argonauts will sign him. No, I'm
but
kidding.
1.5, he would be here. I mean, he is that good. He can play in the NFL. And he says, gosh, I don't want to play anywhere but New Orleans, and I'll play for $1.5 million. Well, Lance, you have a job. But otherwise, Lance Moore is going to be moving on and trying to get what he can get. He's a fine receiver who happens to make too much money for what he does.
But is he a system receiver? Is he a receiver that works in the system here?
There's no doubt about it.
Or is he a guy that can go to the Washington Redskins tomorrow and make an immediate impact? And I'm just throwing the skins out there.
You answered your question.
Yeah.
He is a system receiver. He can go to certain clubs.
Yeah.
He'd be great in Green Bay. He'd be great in Green Bay.
Wait.
Probably
Jordy Nelson.
Great?
Well, I mean,
he
What
would
do you
work
mean?
in
He'd be
Buffalo.
the fifth wide receiver in Green Bay.
You put Jordy Nelson over here is what I'm trying to say, and he's Lance Moore. Okay, you put Lance Moore there.
You bring your
Jordy
garbage.
Nelson
You bring your
catches-
garbage man on your route, and if he can run, he can go catch and play wide receiver. NASCAR, all the cars run the same. The fastest car is Drew Brees in the Saints. Lance Moore would be crazy to go to a slower car and think he's going to. It's proven. The wide receivers, the running back, the offensive line, everything outside of Jimmy Graham, tight end, it's a bunch of,
They're interchangeable.
They're interchangeable, bunch of serviceable players, no stars at all, ever if rarely. And, I think Lance Moore is just.
But he is an NFL receiver. I'm going to make that clear.
No, but so was Devery Henderson
Right.
and Meacham, and they got cut. I think it's Drew Brees makes anybody very good, and if you don't have Drew Brees, you can become ordinary and cut pretty easy. But, I mean, who knows? Lance Moore could catch on with another team.
I just mentioned Buffalo. Buffalo runs the same exact system as the Saints. That might be a place he could catch on.
Marone was here.
But he's not catching on at $5.1 million.
No, and he's not some star, and he's not catching 60, 80 balls like he could in New Orleans.
I think the guy we want to talk most about is Pierre Thomas for one reason, because he's a guy I think is still the best all-around running back on the New Orleans Saints. Now, and I think he's still a bargain.
I agree.
If you didn't see what the playoffs brought you when he was hurt with the chest injury, I mean, he still gave you all the starts in the regular season. He was still a part-time player, however.
Yep.
But when you look the postseason, you saw two guys that teamed it together that make literally no money, especially Kaare Robinson, and you put them together. And they had 250 yards rushing in 2 games in the postseason. Those 2 games, they had 2 touchdowns. What they didn't have, though, and I want people to be quite aware of this, is that they had 4 total catches for 30 total yards in 2 games. Now, what Pierre Thomas does give you, everybody thinks that Darren Sproles is the guy that catches the ball in the back. He gave you 77 catches, or 71, something like that, for 570 more yards. So he's over 1,100 yards. Yards from scrimmage with his rushing. So it's even tougher when you put that into perspective, but you do have 4 guys that are capable running backs. And if you want to say that Cadet could take Sproles' place, another thing. But that's why I think that would be the luxury of keeping him, because it is $2.9 million. And then if you start taking these guys off, and even include Bunkley, and who wants to lose all 4 of these guys? The 3 you mentioned, Bunkley. You're talking about 20-something extra million with what you have now. You could go shopping.
Right.
Well, that's what's great about Peyton. I mean, you got to love this guy. I mean, Lance Moore and Pierre Thomas, Sproles, fan favorites, big contributors to this team. The guys they just got rid of, Vilma and Greer and Will Smith and Harper, Roman Harper. I mean, my God, these are heroes of this era.
Well, every one of those guys except Sproles won a Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, NFC title game guys, major contributors, and fans love these guys. There's no baggage with these guys, and boom, Sean Payton just takes out the machete and chops them down and moves on to the next group because he's smart and he doesn't get emotionally attached. He's very logical, and it's a great thing because we as fans, sports media, man, I like the interview with that guy in the locker room. He's always there for me, and he's a good player. We even get jaded. Peyton's not jaded, man. I don't care. Yes, I'm cutting my brother today. He's over the hill. I mean, you got to like that.
If there was no salary cap, these guys would be here.
Oh, yeah.
Period. But this is a business.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
it is.
The one thing you will lose if they do cut or move Pierre Thomas is he is the best back they have at picking up the blitz.
That's what I wanted to say, too.
And I got to tell you right now, when you look at this offensive line and the possibility, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, of losing Streiff, losing De La Puente. Obviously, you still got Armstead who's going to be starting at that left tackle who's young. One of the things you want to do is be able to protect, obviously, the franchise, Drew Brees. That might be the only drawback there because this is still a passing offense.
And it's a huge drawback. I mean, that's why I said when I opened this up saying he's the best all-around back, and I failed to mention that part. That was in my head, though, because that is so important, especially when you have a line that had so many holes last season that Drew Brees was sacked so many times, and the older he gets, you know, you got to protect this guy, man.
No, you do. And he's small and all that. But, you know, the thing I'm mentioning how great Peyton is, maybe a mistake by keeping Colston and not keeping Carl Nix. Now, I know it's much different contracts, longer deal, and Loomis would be real busy working the cap space with Nix's ridiculous deal that he got. But I think only Willie Roaf maybe is a better mauler than Nix. And you got to protect Drew Brees. And like we said earlier, I mean, no offense, but Colston hadn't done that much since that big deal. And he's just a kind of a regular serviceable wideout. Yeah, he's steady. And I think you get almost anybody that could be steady, even a younger wide receiver. And I love Colston. But Carl Nix, a mauler, the offensive line's been very mediocre for a long time. And now it's getting even less than mediocre, which is dangerous.
You know, I agree with you, and I'll say this also. When you start looking at where the Saints are, and I said this on last week's show, I've said it on the radio show before, I think there has to be a change in philosophy as you look at the tail end of Brees' career. You've got to get better at the offensive line. You need to protect him. He can't take those hits.
No, and you might even want to be a little more run-oriented. I know Peyton probably doesn't like that and time of possession stuff, but you want to stretch this guy's career so he can play at 38, 39. I mean, look, he's not playing at 39 or 40 most likely. I mean, everybody likes to think he is and all that, but I mean, let's go with history of the NFL. How many effective players have played at 40 or above at quarterback? You can't name
Not in this era.
You can name 5 guys that were neat quarterbacks that played 40 plus, but not really effective. So what's Brees got, 3 or 4 more years? You want him to be great years.
Right.
And then that window's shut forever.
And again, everybody knows, I think we know, as you get older, it's harder to recover from an injury.
I know.
Believe me, I know.
And very few people outside of Sean Payton are going, man, I wonder what I can do after Brees is gone with another quarterback.
Believe me.
Payton wants that challenge, but he'll probably wait for it as long as possible.
504-866-3200. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Let's go to the phone lines. Sean is in New Orleans. Sean, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Our panel tonight, Corey Johnson and Scott Alexander of 990 AM WGSO.
Yeah, how you doing, Eric? Love your show. Love listening to you on the radio, and Scott as well. And Corey, grew up listening to you. Real quick, I just want to say I like these moves I'm hearing from the Saints today, man. And I called here a couple of weeks ago, and I said about the Pierre Thomas thing and a few others. I'm happy to hear that they're making this move, man, because like I said, man, you talked about people at this stage of their career going to be 30, and they're just average players now. Even Pierre Thomas, he does everything well, but look, 500 yards rushing in the screen game. Come on, man. People around the league ain't thinking about that. So when you talk about paying somebody $3 million, the Saints, to keep Drew Brees going and why he's been so successful so long as a Saint, he had weapons. And right now, other than Jimmy Graham, who do you feel on that offense?
None of these guys are Pro Bowlers, Sean. None of these guys we mentioned.
You got to get some youth out there. I feel that. I just want to hear, what are some guys you think via the draft or free agency that you think could come and help this team? Because, look, I would love to see that kid from Oregon taking Sproles' place, maybe in the 3rd round or something like that as a running back coming out of the backfield, or see if they could get another veteran corner with some of this money that they possibly could free up to put alongside of Keenan Lewis, something like that. Some stuff that's really going to help the team, not holding on to players from the 2009 Super Bowl team, So I'm just hang up and listen.
Sean, thanks for the phone call. Thanks for the compliment.
I think that was Sean Payton.
and Sean Payton, thanks for watching. Scotty,
that
take
voice
you first.
monitor thing. He had that thing changing his voice. I'm glad y'all agree with me. No, I mean, that's an astute call.
No,
I mean, it really is. He's right on the money.
Yep.
And he's separating emotion from, like, let's move forward. What are we going to do? We already got that Super Bowl. Hey, we've congratulated them. Let's move forward.
So
hey,
well said. You don't need the 09 guy. We're in 2014,
Right.
09.
If we all are hanging on to it, though, correct?
Of course.
But, you know, the one thing I think is Kaare Robinson is that kind of free agent. Even though he played last year sparingly, remember, he didn't even get off the practice squad for a long time, or at least off the inactive list. And then all of a sudden he's getting into games, and all of a sudden we're seeing a little wiggle. And then he had that one big fumble that kind of set him back a little bit in New England, I believe, after he had some nice runs. But then he came in the playoffs, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, now you are seeing what he's talking about, that youth, getting that youth in here and bringing it in and seeing what he can do on a full-time basis.
No, and imagine if you got 2 offensive linemen and 2 receivers that were just viable.
Right.
With Kaare Robinson, it ups his game a notch or 2. Maybe he's sort of bowling ballish. He can pound some people.
And I'll add something to that as well. I mean, I think they've got to upgrade the skill positions at wide receiver, and it will take pressure off Jimmy Graham. All of a sudden, if you've got guys that have to be accounted for in that wide receiving core, then you can't double team Jimmy Graham.
I mean, look at these teams the Saints played in the playoffs. I mean, look at those wide receiving cores. All of them have a star, at least one.
Yes.
And a lot of them have a star tight end, too. The Saints don't, you know?
Scott, anybody out there? I mean, look, we look at the hometown guys. I mean, you look up the river and you look.
I like all 3 guys up the river,
Beckham,
honestly.
I mean,
Jeremy Hill, even at running back, if you want to get a guy.
But an NFL player.
Yeah, he's big time.
Right.
I mean, you know, across the board, this is a deep year for wide receiver.
It really is.
I mean, I'm talking like deep. You're getting 3 guys that are going to be top 12 picks. You know, Mike Evans, who they just talked about the least, obviously Marquise Lee, and then the best of them is Sammy Watkins out of Clemson. But those guys will definitely be gone. And then you start talking about Odell Beckham, who obviously improved his stock at the combine, running the 4.43. And then Jarvis Landry might have dropped his, which could be good for a team because we know he's faster than 4.7.
But he'll run better at the LSU Pro Day.
Yeah, but point being is there's a lot of talent out there, even if you all styles too. You got Kelvin Benjamin from Florida State who got the game-winning touchdown, who's perceived to go right around when the Saints are picking. So if they were to go there, I personally prefer cornerback. I think if you can get a big-time cornerback, that's what I want in the first round. But that's just me.
Right.
But wide receiver is so deep, you could really get a really good one in the second round.
And again, the running back position has been so devalued now. The Saints have had a really struck goal in the past, being able to get guys that were undrafted free agents to come in here and to be able to play. Mark Ingram's kind of an anomaly when you start looking at going after a number 1 pick. And my guess is the last number 1 pick we're going to see at a running back, maybe in Saints history, the way this thing is going under Peyton.
Unless it's some special guy that's like a once-a-decade type player and he's rare, like a Adrian Peterson type who's, 230, 4.4 and special. I mean, but yeah, Eric, it's proven. 5th round, 6th round, you can find
undrafted Pierre Thomas, Kaare Robinson.
No, and have pretty good running backs. So, there's a lot of, and then that running back average lifespan so short in the NFL. Even if you have a star, it's like you're keeping your fingers crossed he holds together or comes back from the knee surgery.
And how many hits does he have in his body? Because you don't want to pay them because all of a sudden, after hit like 1,000, all of a sudden some of them can't run anymore.
No, I mean, Peyton probably thinks Pierre Thomas is at whatever level he was at, he's under that now.
No question.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of these players. So, and then you get a fresh set of legs and burn them out until you move on to the next fresh
Eventually,
set.
they're going to have to learn how to be able to block in this offense. So whoever is going to be there, whether it be Kaare Robinson, whether it be Mark Ingram, whoever's going to be the guy is going to have to. He's going to have to adjust to what's going on, or they'll find somebody that will. Let's head back to the phone lines. Robert is in Slidell. Robert, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks for calling.
Hey guys, how y'all doing? Eric, Corey, Scott.
Robert.
I turn my radio on at 11. I don't turn it off till after I've gone home from work. I love
That's what we like to hear. What station's it on?
It's only one station in the city. You kidding me? 990 AM WGSO.
Yeah, I thought that was an assumption.
Yeah.
I just got 2 questions. The first one, what do you guys think the Saints are going to end up doing, or what should they end up doing for the quarterback position to Drew Brees? And then the second one, maybe you can address later if you're not ready, but how disappointed are you guys with the LSU basketball team, just given the recent recruiting success that they've had and just the hype around Johnny Jones when he got to Baton Rouge? I'll hang up and listen. Thanks a lot.
Robert, thanks for the call. We'll address LSU hoops in a few minutes. Is it too early to start looking for Drew Brees' replacement?
I mean, I don't know. If you can find a guy right now, but it gets to the point where it's probably about right. Brees probably has about 3-4 years tops left. I mean, how old is Brees now, 35?
He'll be 35 next season.
Yeah, I mean, Brees is going to be done at 38 years old. I mean, 39 is as good as it gets.
And then 4 years, though.
I know, okay, 3 or 4 years. And then at the tail end, he's not playing at 38, 39 like he's playing today. Now, you can think he's gonna, and you can think he's Peyton Manning or he's Brady, and maybe he is. Maybe he is. But percentages are Manning's going to have some kind of drop-off soon. Brady's going to have some kind of drop-off soon. Just going by the percentages, these guys are getting old. Right. So, yeah, I would think it's time probably to – because what is it, the first contract, 3-4 years?
I think it's a 4-year deal, and that's why I would probably say you're about a year out.
Maybe so. You
You're
might be right.
About a year out.
You might be right.
And you're not going to go for anybody in the first 2 rounds,
No.
for sure.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
exactly.
in the next 3 years even. You're gonna get a guy. You know, Tony Romo was an undrafted free agent out of Eastern Illinois. You're hoping Ryan Griffin is that guy out of
Yes.
Tulane, and I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but they are hoping to like bring him along, which is why they didn't let the Kansas City Chiefs or other teams that were looking for a backup at the waiver wire. You know, because he was on the practice squad.
Yes.
That's why they signed him.
Right.
So I think right now they're saying, hey, we're going to give this kid a chance and see. You don't have to play him for 3-4 years. And if it doesn't work out in practice after 2-3, see him in preseason. But they think they like what they saw, at least right now. Now, a lot of you fans, especially LSU ones, are probably scoffing right now. You're like, no way you're going to rely on this kid from Tulane. Well, I'm going to say this. They have Drew Brees, so they're not really worrying about it. And they can always get a good backup. This guy will probably be the backup this season. He might be third team again, but he'll probably.
I'm leaning towards you. I think he's going to be the backup this season. I think this team's cash-strapped.
Yep.
They look at that position and say, you know what? If worse came to worse, and we needed to get a veteran off the street, we could get one. But he's probably, to me, I think he's your backup this year, and they're going to try to see what he can do.
And they are building him up, just like they were doing Chase Daniel. But you knew Chase Daniel was always going to be the backup because Drew was still young. But now Drew's old. And if he doesn't work out next year, then they'll go ahead and maybe draft somebody next year in third, fourth round. You can get quarterbacks in later rounds.
No, and I think to better answer the question, Eric, they're not drafting Mettenberger in the second round this year.
No.
And probably maybe not even next year. So you're probably right, like a year or so away because of that 3-4 year time constraint. And also because I think to do it next year, you got to win this year where you have the luxury of being able to, I don't want to say waste an early round pick, but use an early round pick to get a quarterback.
Right.
So
y'all
are
they fall
right.
in love with. I mean, somebody they've been looking at.
Peyton might see some
right,
sophomore
exactly.
right now and go, this kid's going to be
He
a
saw
player.
Tony Romo. And again, so he's the guy
Same
that was
college.
exactly.
Yeah,
He saw Tony Romo, so he knew about that. We'll take a quick break. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night, 6 p.m. here on WLAE TV, with a rebroadcast on Friday nights, 10 o'clock on WLAE TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Inside New Orleans Sports.
My name's Reggie. Just recently, my wife and I took in her sister's children. Now, we already had 4, so I went from becoming a family man to a man with a bigger family. Now, you can't eat love, so I don't know how I'm gonna feed them tonight. How was that, Reg?
I think I look more like Denzel.
That's cold, man.
Play a role in ending hunger. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger and find your local food bank.
Packers. Vikings. Packers. Vikings.
Vikings. Red state. Blue state. Vegan.
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live.
our families,
United.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Cox Channel 14, Charter Channel 11 and 711, AT&T Channel 32 and 1032, Dish TV, DirecTV, and over-the-air broadcast on Channel 32.
Welcome back. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Great panel for you tonight. Corey Johnson and Scott Alexander of 990 AM WGSO. You can catch all three of us on the radio at 990 AM WGSO. I start at 11 o'clock. Go to 1, Scotty from 1 to 3, and Corey from 3 to 5. By the way, Corey's got the only radio show that's being simulcast on television. You can catch him on Cox Cable Channel 4. And Corey, on the North Shore, it's
Spectravision. Spectravision. No, it's 325 on Charter, Eric.
That's Corey Johnson, people. Love it.
325 on Charter.
I hadn't heard that phrase in 20 years.
That's why.
Since your last credit card hotel bill, what are you talking about?
Thank God I wasn't drinking any water at that time. 866-3200 is the phone number. I promise you we'll get to LSU hoops, and of course we'll talk to Pelicans as well. Needs going into this free agency period. It's so different now than what it used to be. You almost have to go in, fill your needs with free agency. If you have the dollars, and then anything you can't fill, then you go into the draft. Guys, what do you think? I'm thinking offensive line, and a lot of that depends on what's going to happen with Strief and De La Puente. Wide receiver, no matter what happens. Cornerback, as you mentioned, I think is a priority. And you got to figure what's going to happen at the safety. Raphael Bush maybe is the panacea at safety, but they still probably go in the draft, I think, and grab a safety if they can. What do you guys think?
Let me say this. Cornerback is, to me, the most important. You don't have Jabari Greer anymore, so now you're going to rely on Corey White. At least at the other positions, you still have a chance to re-sign Zach Strief, which I think Zach would like to be here and end his career, and I think the Saints would like the continuity. I think they're going to draft an offensive tackle as well. But, you know, when you go up and down, they need an outside linebacker. You're looking at safety, Malcolm Jenkins. I think they're giving Malcolm Jenkins a number like they've done in the past and said, look, we're not going to go public with this number. We like you. We want you to come back. But here's the number we're going to give you. If not, go out and get what you can and do what's best for you. But there's 5 or 6 positions that they literally could use players at. But cornerback, to me, is a must-get. Free agent, first-round pick, whatever it may be. You need a guy that's going to be a stud in there to come and start because you have to lock people down. And in this division, it's only getting tougher and tougher.
I don't think you can rely on Patrick Robinson, I got to be honest with you. I would not be surprised to see if he is a cap casualty as well, although I think the coaching staff still has some hope for him. He just hasn't shown me a lot throughout his career. Corey, what do you think the needs are?
I mean, I think everything Scott just mentioned, but I wouldn't forget about defensive end. I wouldn't be fooled into like all these young guys are the answer and you've got 3 or 4 guys that you rotate. D end and D tackle. I mean, the D line was horrendous for years. It was run down the middle. I used to laugh and go, why aren't teams running against the Saints? They're going to lose the game because they're not running. They're throwing and trying to keep up with the Saints scoring. I'm like, run.
Just keep
run.
Drew Brees off the field.
Thank God,
right.
exactly. Thank God they're not running, you know. But the Saints, a lot of teams, especially playoff time, crunch time, realized that D-line was terrible.
Yeah.
And I think a D tackle and a D end, I still think is a priority. D end might be, I mean, when you've got a quarterback already, D end might be the most important position outside a cornerback on the entire team.
What about Victor Butler? Well, you know, he's coming back. He was.
That's good. That's a good thing.
That's a guy that can.
The lineman they signed's not the other Dallas.
No, Kenyon Coleman is retired.
He has retired.
But I love Akeem Hicks. Obviously, Cam Jordan's the All-Pro, and Glenn Foster.
Hicks is you should love him. You're right.
He's a beast. But the thing is, this begs, when you brought the defensive line up, it made me think of, what would you do with Broderick Bunkley? He is still worth us being a starter, but he makes a lot of money.
Yeah, too much.
$6 million. But do you want to rely on John Jenkins full time? That's the problem.
You know, I don't think you have a choice, though, Scotty. Right. I think when you look at the overall economics of the Saints right now, you can't afford Broderick Bunkley at $6 million a year, especially when I think Larry had it Larry Holder had it in the paper the other day. Bunkley makes 6.1. The rest of the line combined makes 6.8 million.
Yeah. But if you can replace Bunkley with somebody who makes a lot less and you feel you're getting similar play, it's done. But if you can't, Scott's right. You're not going to go in with no defensive tackle and get gashed again down the middle. I think, but yeah, it's too much money.
But you got Hicks and Jenkins there, and both guys are rising stars.
Plus, you've got, you know what I like about the best part about the defense is, and I don't mean this in a funny way, finally they've got the whole backup rotation set.
They really do.
You've got that. If you get, I think, like a DN starter and a D tackle starter, new guys, and get rid of that $6 million Bunkley deal, and I think that could really take it to another. Rob Ryan's amazing with just what he's done with, I mean, a bunch of marginal players. I shouldn't say marginal, but just green, inexperienced players.
Do you get the feeling you're going to see a whole new Saints team? I mean, it literally. I mean, I think all these
changing of the guard right now.
I think all these guys we mentioned, we already mentioned the 4 that have already been cut, but all these guys are probably going to be gone for the most part.
You're not getting a new coach, so you're not going to have the 30-plus like when Hazlitt took over for Ditka, or the 30-plus when Loomis and Peyton took over for Hazlitt. But, yeah, I think you're going to probably see 20 new players out of 53, 20.
catching the ball. It's going to be Nick Toon. It's going to be Kenny Stills. It's going to be Joe Morgan,
Yep.
probably.
Yep.
You know, it's going to be Kyrie Robinson running.
Exactly.
It's going to be Mark Ingram. This is a whole new club we're looking
No,
at.
it
Well,
really
and
is.
you're seeing that also. Remember, there was no Peyton 2 seasons ago. And so, again, he got adjusted to some of these new faces. And some of those guys that have been around for a while, they're getting into their 30s. They're getting into those next contracts in some cases. And, you know, it's going to be interesting to see if they can afford them. I mean, one of the guys that I think is going to be really high on the market is Zach Strief, simply because when you look at the number of right tackles that are out there in free agency, there's not a lot of good ones. He's probably been rated as the best or one of the top 2 out there. Saints may have to look at opportunity to be able to fill that with a lesser player that's going to cost less, because I don't think they can match out there.
Which is scary thought.
Yes.
Strief's just sort of an okay guy. It's like Bushrod. Okay, got to let Bushrod go to Chicago. You had to let him go. But, boy, you're like, Bushrod was nothing great, but you're like, oof. We're downgrading that left tackle
Charlie
now.
Brown came in, you was like, where's Bushrod?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and I thought Brown was like the second best lineman on that team for about half the season.
He had 2 good games.
He did. He had 2 good ones.
Yeah, but everybody else is just
A lot
so
of bad ones.
mediocre.
Right. And then you got De La Puente, who was an undersized center, but at the same time, you know, if he goes out and the market is set for him, there's a possibility that you've got, now you're looking at 2 spots along that offensive line. And you still got Armstead that's still a little wet behind the ears.
2 years ago, De La Puente was flipping burgers at a Metairie bar. Okay, I'm kidding, but almost. I mean, undersized, not that good, just sort of a. And what is that, about the 3rd or 4th downgrade at center?
They have gone.
In the Peyton era?
Yeah, no, they've gone. Again, the best they've ever had
Goodwin,
was Jonathan
Fain,
Goodwin.
and,
right.
Yeah.
And the guy from Chicago, they had him for a cup of coffee.
Yep.
And so, I mean, again, you know, we'll see. There is a little bit of a change in the guard there right now. I think we're seeing it. The question is, they struck gold with these players back in 2006 when they brought in, again, keeping some of the Haslett players, and then the drafts, the undrafted free agency, going out and making trades, bringing Vilma in. They built the championship team. They're now in that situation again where they've got to do it all over again, and they got to do it in the twilight of Drew Brees' career.
Well, like you just said, when they took it over for Haslett, that's a real coach, and Randy Mueller was a real GM. Now, it didn't work out, but it wasn't Mike Ditka where it was Fantasyland. It was a real team. So he had something to work with.
They had a nucleus.
Kind of like Baum, even, you know, or Mora.
Oh, no
Baum's
doubt.
player, USFL guys, good Finks drafting, so he had something to work with. Peyton's kind of taken over for himself, so he's got something to work with, you know. And then you got Drew Brees, so no, it's a pretty good scenario.
We'll see what's going to happen, but I agree with both you guys. I think there's going to be a little bit of a when they tee it up in September, there'll be a lot of new faces that'll be on this team.
But it's going to be fun, young and
I've said
speed
this on my
and
show
athleticism.
a lot. You know, we are paying. Well, the Saints are paying Drew Brees $20 million. But wouldn't you rather be the Saints paying them that than Flacco in Baltimore, or being a Falcon fan and dealing with Matt Ryan, who's still a good quarterback, or even worse, Tony Romo with his inconsistency? I know he restructured his contract, but there's a lot. Cutler, who's maddeningly
or Russell
inconsistent.
Wilson with this defense.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, the last few years, I mean, Brees carried this team. Not last year so much, but even great quarterbacks like a Russell Wilson. It's like you'd want to rely on him to carry you when you don't have that defense he's got. So
well,
no.
and I think by the time Brees' contract is up, the way contracts are going right now, he could be a bargain. When you're looking at that last year now, again, they won't touch his contract this year. Next year is when it really balloons. That's when they're going to go to him. They're going to renegotiate.
That's his last hurrah.
Hey, Kaepernick just signed for $18 million, okay? He can't throw a straight pass. He was 31st in the league in completion percentage. Now, he has his legs to help him out in the playoffs. That was wonderful. But how long are those legs going to help you out? I mean, he's getting $18 million. I swear, if you threw it out right now, Jerry Rice could be on the end, and he ain't catching it. All right? That's for facts.
Let's shift gears. 504-866-3200. We'll talk to some Pelicans now. You can always talk Saints as well. I'll tell you what, before we do that, let's head to the phone lines. Let's go to Ville Platte, a place that Corey hangs out all the time. Let's go to Gregory. Gregory, welcome. Thanks so much for the call. You're our first call from Ville Platte, by the way. Thanks for doing it. Gregory, you with us? Hey, Gregory. Welcome.
How you doing? Hello?
Hey, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm all right. It's something I have a question, man, about P.L. Thomas. P.L. Thomas, I mean, and this guy still got a lot in his tank, man. I mean, he just have a way of just making plays, man. And Lance Moore, same thing. I can say the same thing about him. As far as Jimmy Graham, pay the man. Come on, man, pay the man.
So, Gregory, you'd keep Moore and also Pierre at their current contracts?
I love P.L. Thomas. I love the guy.
Well, here's the problem. If there was no salary cap whatsoever, Gregory, it'd be no problem. These guys, everybody loves these guys. We all love them. They give everything they have. They're part of that Super Bowl contingent, and they're still productive. But the problem is, when you have a $20 million quarterback and you're about to have $11 to $12 million tight end, you have to cut the corners wherever you can. And I agree, pay the man. I'm with you 100% on that. However, you also have to be fiscally responsible. It's not a matter of will the owner pay it. The owners are within the constraints of the salary cap. You got to fit it. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. There's some bigger pieces and there's a couple of smaller pieces. What's more important to you? You have a luxury at running back because you saw in the playoffs that Kaare Robinson can run the ball.
Yes.
You know, you saw in the playoffs that Mark Ingram can run the ball. Now, do they make up for what you're losing in Pierre Thomas? I'm with you, man. I love Pierre Thomas. But can they afford it?
Gregory, thanks for the phone call. Certainly appreciate it. Let's shift to Pelicans. Scott, I'll talk with you. I'll start with you first. What have we learned about this club that we can take away from this club this season for next season?
Well, this past week we've learned you should have been starting Tyreek Evans all year long. How about that? Because this guy comes in, you're paying him $11 million, and you bring him off the bench. You're trying to make him a Manu Ginobili type because you were in the San Antonio system, and that's the way they do it. You want a good star on your second team. However, this is a different kind of cat. That's a mentality to bring a guy off the bench, that guy can handle it. And I give Tyreek Evans credit. We all know that there was a blow-up recently. We don't know exactly what happened, but he was suspended for a game.
After that Minnesota game.
But I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier. I'm surprised it wasn't even public. He's kept it down. This guy's a scorer, a guy that can put 20 on the board as he did his rookie year. He's averaging 12.8, and he was getting 23 minutes a game, okay? He comes over, now he's starting. He's been averaging 40 minutes a game. He's given you a triple-double, basically, in the past week.
Yep.
24, 9, and 8.
Yep.
And he goes to the hoop. I'm all of a sudden wanting to watch games again. I'm going regardless because it's my gig and that's what I do.
That's it, though.
But I want to watch them.
It's not my gig, and it's not what I do all the time, and that makes me want to watch them.
Right.
So the average sports guy, or the one that doesn't care and needs to be lured in, you got to have a prolific score, some excitement, and that's what you get.
And also now Eric Gordon's better. I mean, Eric Gordon's been inconsistent as we know, but that 28 he put up the other night, it's like now I saw a little bit, and you're still missing 3 of your best 6 players for the rest of the year.
Yep.
Sure.
Drew Holiday, Ryan Anderson, Jason Smith out for the year. We know this. And these next 20 games are going to tell a lot about a lot of character. Anthony Davis is giving it night in, night out. He had a couple bad games. He comes back the last game of that against the Lakers, 17.7 rebounds in the first quarter. Then he ends up with 28-15, 10 of 16 from the field. He's a beast. You can see he's a totally different player, most improved player in the NBA. But if these 3, the contingent 3 that are still there, if they can play ball and like they look like the Lakers, now the Lakers are Lakers, and a lot of people are going to make them look good, but they have 20 games left. And I think jobs are going to be online, meaning like whether you're going to be here or not. They can't cut you like in the NFL, but they can basically give you away for nothing, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, if Dell Demps can bring in a guy or two in the offseason, get all these injured players back, and I mean, I think they're a playoff team next year, Eric. If
I thought they were this year, honestly.
I did too, but I mean, with all those injuries,
it's impossible. It's impossible.
Exactly.
You can't lose your starting lineup, basically, and expect to get
You
to
lost
the playoffs.
about 50% of your either starting lineup or most minutes in your top 7, 8
I mean, even though
players.
Anderson doesn't start,
right?
he's considered a starter. Evans has been lost for...
And he's their only three-point shooter, maybe in the history of the organization.
You can't lose your point guard. You can talk about Jason Smith, what he is or what he's not.
No, exactly.
He was looked
lose
at
your point guard.
as either a six-man or a center here.
Right.
Your starting center. So what about the backups? And what about what have we learned about some of the guys that have come in and have had backup roles here? And I'll throw a couple names at Darius Miller. Have we learned enough about him? Is he an NBA player? Is he a guy that can play on this team? Can he contribute long term?
No. I think he's a good player. He'll be in the league for 6-7 years, and he's never going to start for anybody, but he's a decent player. Have we learned much? No, he hasn't played a whole lot, so I haven't learned anything different.
Played a little bit in the first half of the season, been at the end of the bench now.
Yeah, and that's not a good sign for going forward because right now you are playing pretty much guys that normally wouldn't play because you have injuries. Mm-hmm. The guy's getting the minutes. Brian Roberts has stepped up like nobody's business. This guy is serviceable. I mean, he has made himself an NBA player.
That's a level up.
If he doesn't ask for a huge contract, I like guys like that. Players, and he's not scared to make a big shot.
Demps is pretty good at those kind of.
He really is.
Roberts, I'm like, who's this?
No, he really is.
They're announcing that, I'm like.
Well, I said it the other day too, because people give him a hard time for the Gordon signing and the Evans signing, a little less so on that one, but still. but you don't realize how hard it is to fill those pieces in. You know, he did it last year. He needed another shooter. Last year it was Roger Mason. This year it was Anthony Morrow. So Morrow was supposed to be the complement to make Ryan Anderson even better, make Tariq Evans even better, because basketball, people that know basketball know spacing is the most important thing in basketball, period, on offense. You have to get people open, and they create space. So when you can garner attention by driving down the lane like Evans does, and you have two open guys possibly, because you have to leave one of them open, but one of them's going to be because he's going to double team, because that's the thing, Evans can score on anybody. So if Anderson's open, he's nailing him down, and then if you're going to try to get on Anderson, you had Morrow. So I like the way Dell Demps has filled in the pieces. That you just have to have all your pieces for this complement, or better yet, a chemistry experiment to work, because right now it's still an experiment. We haven't seen it yet. You know, you're paying 3 guards basically 7 8-digit salaries, 11, and close to 15. So point being is that a lot of people kind of liked it when it happened. They were a little, but we haven't got to see the whole thing come to fruition.
And even though Eric Gordon has played well, I think that he is the odd man out eventually. I think that next year he is a movable player with the contract. You've talked about in your show about possibly opting out and trying to get more of a long-term deal. It would not surprise me if he is moved, and ultimately you see now Evans in that starting role at that guard position instead of having him at the 3 and going out and getting a legitimate 3, which is what they really need. What about Austin Rivers? I think the only knock on Austin Rivers right now is he was the 10th pick in the draft, probably a little bit high. If he is a guy that's picked 15th
or 20th, he's a steal.
You're saying to yourself, gosh, this guy's a steal. But he's played better this season.
Well, plus the guys that were picked like immediately before him that you're like, oh.
Andre Drummond was the pick right before him, and now everybody's saying he is the future star at center. But I think you're right. He is playing much better. Last year, I have to say, he was slow. There was a lot of things going on.
No, it's like maybe he can't make the transition to point guard last year.
And I'm not sure he's ever going to really do that transition. He's going to be.
He's a combo guard.
He'll be a tweener. But he's going to have a career much more so than Darius Miller. I mean, Austin Rivers is going to play in this league. Austin Rivers can still take you one-on-one. He just turned 21 last summer. He's going to have a chance to prove himself, and I think he eventually will. Will he ever be an all-star? Absolutely not. But will he be a possible starter on a team in the long run? I think the jury's out, but give him 2 years, and I think we'll find out. I think it's a possibility.
Yeah, he's a coach on the court kind of thing, I think.
Biggest need for this team going into the offseason?
Big man bruiser and a 3. I mean, right now, a 3 that can score. Here's your problem. You don't have a 3 that can shoot the ball. In this NBA, if you can't have a corner, you shoot the corner 3, which is the shortest 3 on the court. It's 22 feet. Every NBA team has one. Okay, right now you're playing Morrow occasionally there. You're playing Evans. Evans can't shoot if you're going to try to make him a 3.
No, you need a pure 3. You need a pure small forward.
You know, I don't know if you can get it unless you get in that top 5 slot. You know,
but I don't know if you can get a center. I mean, that's.
Well, can you live with a Jenza, Stiesma, and Withy for another season?
If I had to, I could live with that more so than not having a 3 that could shoot. You know, I mean, Darius Miller was the 3 that could shoot, but Darius Miller's doesn't have all the other intangibles. He doesn't have that it factor. And this is no knock on Darius Miller. I liked him. I loved him at Kentucky, but you asked me a question.
It's a step up.
And Al-Farouq Aminu does so many things. It's like this build a robot thing. If you could put him, you know, with the other guys, and you might have something.
You could combine Miller and Aminu. You might have.
I mean, the league's full of 4s playing 5. 4s playing 5s all over the NBA.
No doubt.
Last question about the Pelicans, guys. I want to get to college hoops. Can Monty Williams and Dell Demps survive this season, and then maybe into, if they haven't turned this around, by All-Star break next year?
Isn't Demps a little more solid than Monty?
Demps is solid for a little bit
more. For a longer
because
time.
Demps didn't bring Monty in. I mean, they work together. You see them as a unit, but he didn't. Maybe it's the bald heads. I don't know. But he's more solid, I think. But Monty, I think Monty's solid too. Everybody's like, fire Monty now, and I'm not that guy that's saying that at all. Monty needs to get a chance to play with the team he was expecting to play with this season. Now, here's the thing. If you have the complement of players next season, and by the way, Ryan Anderson's a big question mark, as you know, with the neck. This could, I don't want to get into that right now. This could go further. But let's just say he is back, and he is. Then if you start, 4-12, 5-16, or even 10-20, he might be on a hot seat then. I think you got to give him a chance next season.
No, I agree, but he's going to be watched where I think Dell Demps has a full another year. He wouldn't be watched till the following season.
I agree with that.
Let's talk a little college basketball. We know that UNO, again, even though they've turned their season around, they are not eligible for the Southland Conference tournament. Tulane, LSU, both eligible for their conference tournaments. Let's start with the Tigers. We had a caller earlier that asked about the fact that is LSU hoops disappointing with all the freshmen that have come in and played. Scott, we'll start with you first. Let's talk a little bit about the Tigers. We got about 4 minutes left. Your thoughts on the Tigers, and then we'll get into college hoops as well.
Well, they say, you ask if it's disappointing. The reason I'm going to say it's disappointing is because, and I don't want to single one player out, Jarrell Martin has been disappointing.
Yes.
Because you thought you were getting this thing. And here's the thing. Jarrell Martin played unbelievable in certain games, like Arkansas when he got, or just a few games last week, he got 20 points, and you saw what he can do, and he's got so much talent naturally, but you don't see a fire in that guy. Jordan Mickey started off so great and still playing good basketball, because this front court, and this is always a big if, like if I had wheels, I'd be a bicycle, but this front court, when they're playing so well, is one of the best in the country. It really is. I mean, you can't compete with Arizona, who's so strong, but they have different skills that are so good. Johnny O'Bryant III has improved each year. And all three of these guys are potential NBA guys because I talk to scouts all the time. They're up and down and waver on them all the time, but that's how inconsistent they've been. Because I'll go to a game and I'll see some guys I used to know, the old coach of South Carolina, scout with the Spurs. Talk to Matt Doherty, now, former North Carolina coach, scout with the Pacers. I'll talk to him about them all individually, and then I'll see him again at another game, and they're like, man, my opinion's completely changed, but it's changed the other way on this one. And so that's what LSU season's been like. They can't win on the road, and that has been disappointing.
No, what stinks, I mean, they're like 13-6 after they upset Kentucky like a month ago? And it was like split the rest of the way, and you're in the NCAA tournament, and someone must have told them that because you figured a split was easy.
Yeah.
Like I'm being like conservative about it. Just split and you're in. They'll do better than 500. They're doing much worse than 500 since then. And
well, they're 5-3 then, and now they're 3-5 since, so they're 8-8.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just you want to have juice going as you head into the tournament. This could push them to the NIT if they have a poor SEC tournament.
I think they've got to win the SEC.
They have to win the SEC.
Got to outright win it. Not even make the finals.
I think they got to win.
They got to win it.
I think they got to win it.
Their chance was to beat Florida, and they
got that.
The Kentucky loss really hurt.
And plus, you lose to Florida like you lose to, say, the second time you play Kentucky in overtime, then it's a good effort.
Right.
You get ripped by 20 against Florida, that game was over by
number one team in the country.
Well, no, but still.
No, it is. Tulane and UNO, you got to give them props, though. Both coaches have done a great job in recruiting. Both have turned those programs around. They're probably a year away.
They're a year away, but they're a year ahead of anything. I thought, listen, I like both Ed Conroy and Mark Schlesinger a lot. And I am so impressed with what both of those guys have done this season. They're both sitting around 6 in their conference and 16 and 14 team conferences. Seriously, much better because, after the transfers, we thought 13, 14, 15 at best, and they both have gotten 500 seasons, 8-7 for the Wave. They play with Southern Miss tonight. So if you're watching on Friday, I guess it's
You'll
yesterday.
know the results.
but UNO is 500 now, and they were 8-6 at one time in conference. So congrats to both those universities.
Corey got about 20 seconds.
If there's a sporting event going on in New Orleans, Scotty A is there.
I'm going to the Tulane game right after this.
Women or men? Yeah.
No doubt. Anything you can add to Tulane and UNO?
Not really, Eric. To be honest with you, I've watched a little bit of Green Wave and none of UNO, but that's why I was giving Scott props. He can rattle off any school's athletic program here, any sports program, and tell you what media are covering it because he goes to everything.
And that's gospel. You can best believe that's true.
Insane.
Guys, thanks so much. We're at the end of the program. Certainly appreciate you guys coming down. Not only do I obviously enjoy working with you guys on a daily basis at 9:90 a.m. WGSO, love having you guys on the panels. Again, thanks again. Thanks to Corey Johnson and also Scott Alexander. Remember, Corey Johnson, 3 to 5 on WGSO and on Cox Channel 4 television as well with the simulcast. And, of course, Scott Alexander from 1 to 3 on 990 WGSO. You can check me out on the radio at 11 o'clock on 990 AM WGSO. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Remember, again, there's a rebroadcast of this show each and every Friday night, 10 p.m. right here on WLAE TV. Also on Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Special thanks to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, my producer-director, William Hill. For Corey Johnson, for Scott Alexander, my name is Eric Asher. Check us out on the radio tomorrow starting at 11 o'clock on 990 AM WGSO in New Orleans. Have a great evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation and Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home.